Recording you, huh? All right, so this is live. I don't want to record you. I want to record screen share. I want to share my entire screen. Okay. If I okay, let's see. All right, so this is being recorded. To start off, the first thing that I mentioned that you are going to need to do is download one of these the essentials files that we provide to you to get started. Okay, most of everything is hosted here at Professor Rosala's website, net4.ccas.edu.edu/home/his username. You have an account here as well, right? It'll be the same URL / your username, okay? Just like I have mine, we all have one. If you don't, you should have applied for it. I believe Professor Rosala already applied for most of you. If you haven't heard from us, please let me know. This first week is a little it's a little weird because again, there might be that most of you have the account, some of you don't. So we're working on that. Okay. So from there, you'll notice that the first thing that one of the things there is the essentials files to download. If you go there, it's this first link that he has here, download essentials files. I've already downloaded it. Right. It's a zip file. I downloaded it to my downloads directory. I unzipped it and I put it, somewhere where you're going to remember where you put it. For instance, maybe put it at C, right, at the root. Once you put it there, you can open it up with Visual Studio. So let's close this just to show you. Close solution. Yes. No. So for instance, right now I have it in my downloads page, in my downloads directory. So if I say file, open, you would say open website, and you navigate to where you've copied it to, and say okay. Oh great, I can't navigate. Okay, it opens it up. Okay. Did it open? View solutions. There it is. Okay, so when you open it up, you'll notice that there's quite a few things in here. This content is mostly Professor Rosala's content that he has been working on for quite a few years. And in here, there's quite a few tools that we can use to track your progress in the course. Okay, we have ways to get in here, so we can visit your website, right, and view the files that you've been working on, the latest files that you've uploaded this week, and things like that. Right. So all these folders you should not touch. Okay, you should leave them alone. Right, I suggest that that you create your own directories. Right? You could say, create add another directory, maybe a new folder, and we are going to be working on a project. So let's create a project directory. Maybe create another directory where you're going to put your assignments. Okay. If you're going to be working on some experiments so that you learn, perhaps you can create an experiments directory, experiments, okay? And you would drop your folder, all your assignments in here. So for instance, the assignment for this week, I would suggest that you put it under the assignments directory / and then the name of the assignment, okay? And whatever file I told you to call it, right? So then we will know, right, that to be able to grade it, to visit each one of your websites at that particular location. Yes, and we can look at your assignment. Make sense? All right. If you notice also here, there is a default page. This is the root of the this website. Right? If we run it, if you run the application, it starts off with a with this page, and as I mentioned, this is going to be your home page, right? That you are going to customize. The only thing you should not muck around with this is the links. You see the links, statistics, source, search tree, and so on and so forth. You see them? You can move them around. You can style them. You can put them to the right, to the left, to the bottom of the footer, whatever. But leave the links on the page. Right? Everything else you can throw away and start brand new. Okay? Right? So this is just sample text that you can throw away, but keep the links. Right? Make them prettier. Put a picture of yourself, and some blurb about you, and make it as pretty as you can. All right, make sense? For this week, we're just going to work here in your local instance. Once we make sure that everybody has had a chance to install their own Visual Studio instance on their machine or on your machine. Once we make sure that everybody has an account, everybody can FTP, then we'll ask you to please upload all this to your account. Yes? Right? And we'll provide videos and we'll provide instructions on how to do that. Everybody good? All right. Okay. So this is pretty much it's going to be our development environment for the first, let's see, the first 2/3 of the semester. Right, the last third of the semester, if you remember, we're going to be doing mean stack. Yes, so we're not going to be doing any .NET. We're not going to be doing any SQL Server. We're going to be instead using the Node.js server. We're going to be using writing all our code in JavaScript and HTML and Angular.js. Okay. All right. Let's see. Also in Piazza, I made available the first assignment. So if you go to Piazza, for this class, 4550, and you go to resources, assignment. Here's your first assignment. It's a starting assignment that we're going to be using throughout the first half of this of the course. We're going to be building an application, right, together. Each one of you are going to build it on your own, but following the instructions as we cover different topics. Halfway through the semester, we will have completed this project, right, together through assignments. The second half of the semester, you're going to be on your own, creating your own projects, right? Choose a topic, choose a particular project topic that you might be interested in, and using the same technologies that we use throughout the first half of the semester, you're going to reuse all those that you've learned throughout the assignments. You're going to build something of your own. Okay. So the first one is let's all build something together. The second half is now build whatever you want to build. Okay. And hopefully. There'll be more technologies that we'll be looking at throughout the semester, and you'll be able to apply some of those new topics to your project. All right. Okay. Let's see. So HTML. So yeah, the resulting HTML that you're going to be generating, the resulting page that you're going to be generating, is going to be a very boring page. Okay, it's not going to look too good. It's not going to look pretty, right? It's not meant to, because we haven't yet seen how to style things, how to put colors and images and how to lay out things correctly. We're just going to be focusing on content, right? On how to lay out the information that we want to show to our end users, right? In the second week, right, we'll come back and revisit this HTML that we worked on. And we'll start adding some look and feel, some styling, we'll be applying some responsiveness, right? We'll be applying perhaps some bootstrap, right? Some color, some images. It will make it look professional. So the first week, the HTML will be pretty boring, but again, it'll be focusing on what is the information that we want to convey, right? In the second half, second week, we'll paint it, right? We'll put a skin on it. All right. All right. So the topic today is HTML. I have a couple of slides. Those are not it. Northeastern. And more than slides, it's really an agenda of things, of topics to cover today, right? So that I don't forget to cover a couple things. So first of all, obviously we're going to be talking about HTML, but I believe most of you already understand the concept behind HTML, and we'll cover the basics. But quickly, I'd like to start covering some of the new features in HTML5. As I mentioned last class, HTML5 is one of the first attempt that HTML does at really recognizing the fact that HTML, right, is a full-fledged development environment. Okay, it's not for making brochures or making things look pretty. It's something that can be interactive, right? That people can actually do work on, right? And we see more and more applications that have always lived on our desktops, right? We see that they're moving towards being hosted on the cloud, right? Everything's moving to the cloud, right? And more people are accessing these applications through some sort of through a browser, right? More lately, they're accessing through a tablet or a phone, right? Some smaller. So this introduces a lot of challenges, right? On how do you make the application now not static, right? Be very dynamic on the web, right? That it's very responsive, that you can interact with it, and it reacts to your dragging, right, and to your various gestures that you might do, right, with your finger, with your mouse, and pinch to zoom and whatnot, right? How do you make your applications respond to these gestures, right? And also, how do we make it so that we don't have to build and maintain 2, 3, 4 different versions of our applications, right? How can we reuse some of these ideas? And HTML5 is one of the first attempts at making sure we are building applications now, not just websites, but applications. Okay. All right. So let's look at some of the minimal, right? The simplest of HTML documents. Right, and here we have the simplest is that we do have to have a doc type at the top, right? That says HTML. No longer do we need to display the version, right? So that now it can be backward compatible with any other version. We have the outer HTML tags, right? That wrap the entire content of our HTML documents, right? And then we have 2 distinct sections here: the header, right, and the body. Right? The header is where we store things, where we put content there that is meta information. It's not meant to be consumed by a human, right? It's more like commands and instructions to the browser, right? So, for instance, where you might load other contents, maybe CSS, or you might load JavaScript, or you might load certain other things. Or you might also describe the document. Right? You might describe what is it about. You might describe also what a title. Title now is a required tag, right? This, whatever you put in this title is what goes on at the top of the bar of the window, right? Or if you have a multi-tab browser, right? It's a text that appears at the tab. Okay. And it's meant for you to give a very concise but meaningful description of what this particular page is about. Okay, most people we see that oftentimes it's misused by people just putting a lot of search engine optimization terms in here, right? Because this is used by the search engines to kind of try to categorize your page for search engines, right? And some developers misuse it by putting here lots of terms, right? So because they want to be categorized in a particular category by the search engine. Instead, you should use just a plain English sentence that plainly describes what this page is about. So yes, definitely include the title. And then you have a body. This is the actual content that gets displayed to user, right? Whatever you put in the body. Notice that these are called tags, or sometimes they're also called elements, right? So we call the HTML element, the head element, the meta element, the title element. Right? They are all elements need to be opened and closed. So you have here an opening HTML, and you have the closing HTML. Right? You have the opening head, you have the closing head. You have the opening body, you have the closing body. You see that? Right? We have the title, opening title, closing title. Well, here's where which is it's run, right? This meta is not being closed. Let's close it. If we say that the content inside of an element, so we have a title, this is the body of the elements, right? If there is no body, right, then the closing tag, the closing element here is optional. Okay, so instead of, well, not it's optional, but you still need to close it. And the way you close an element that has no body is by putting a slash at the end. Okay, putting a slash at the end. So for instance, this meta, to close it, you put a slash at the end. There it is. Make sense? Right? Yes.
When you say some developers will put that in and we shouldn't, why? Is there any reason not to, aside from it's not nice? Like is there a better way to get people?
Well, what happens is that if you start misusing the tags, right, you're littering the search space.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. So that's bad for us as a community. But
as a community to be able to find things.
But right? So do you think that every single for-profit site that wants to be seen is going to do that, or are they this is not the right thing to do?
So what happens is search engines are starting to lower the value of certain tags because they're being misused. It just says, okay, everybody's misusing the meta tag or the title tag. I'll start lowering the value of the search value of this, right?
Okay.
And I'll start gathering other information to really gather where I should put this, right?
Yeah.
So for instance, they'll look at the H1, right, or H2s, right, where those are meant to be consumed by humans. You're not going to put garbage in there, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to be this is a real H1 content that it's human readable, right? So I'll instead look at what you typed in the H1 and the H2s and the H3s and try to gather where should this be categorized, right?
And then so could it backfire then, or would you just be not as high? So I'm actually say that I just don't care. I don't want to contribute. Not that that's true. Yeah. Is that something I would still want to do, or is there any other downside?
No, you should not do it.
No, but is there any downside aside from not being a good person?
Again, the search engines might actually pull you down.
Oh yeah, so it could actually put you down further. Yep. All right.
Yeah. Right. So notice that also the tags here are lowercase, right? And even though it's not enforced, right? It's usually easier to read if you use these tags to be, as lowercase. Notice that there's no tabbing yet here, but it's very common that if you're nesting tags, right? For instance, this one, this is the parent of these other tags over here, right? So it's to make it easier to read, it would be very useful if you would indent the child elements, right? By putting two spaces or 4 spaces. Do not use tabs, right? Different IDEs render tabs differently, and it's considered to be bad practice to use tabs, so spaces, right? All this, what I'm saying, you will be graded on. Okay, so definitely a doc type at the top. definitely HTML, lowercase. You know, if you open a tag, close it, right? Lowercase, the names of the elements. Please indent, right? These are all good practices, right? So the head here, also notice that the meta is, these are children of the head tag. So I've indented meta and I've indented title, okay? All right, so that is the minimal element. Also notice that we have a character set on how should the characters be rendered and interpreted by the browser, okay? All right. All right. One of in the like going back to your question, right? There's more and more effort, right, at putting more meaning to the text that is out there, right? Right now, the text that is out there is meant to be consumed by humans, right? So only a human can read it and understand what it is, right? If they look at, you know, a number slash a number slash a number, says, oh, that's a date, okay? Or if they look at three numbers followed by a dash, followed by three numbers, followed by a dash, followed by four numbers, I can parse that and I can understand that it's a phone number. Yes? But there's more, there's a big effort, there's a big push on making the content not only readable by human beings, but also readable by automated algorithms, right? That they can read the text, right, and make sense out of it, right? That we're trying to add meaning to this content so that we can have not only search engines, right, but you know, imagine Wikipedia, right? Imagine Wikipedia. I mean, how much information is there, right? But the problem with Wikipedia is that the information is consumable by human beings, right? It's meant to be consumed by human beings. Yes. If the information in Wikipedia had meta information, right? That if it's you know if you have a country, then perhaps you could tag it as a country, right? If you have a date, you can tag it as a date. If you have a town, you can tag it as a town, right? If you have a person, you can tag it as a, you know, what their roles are, if he's a president or if he's a governor or whatnot. Imagine if the information in Wikipedia would be not only readable by human beings, but it would be readable by computers, right? That they could extract information, right? Meta information about what's typed in there, right? There's a big effort at, you know, going back to all this text data and adding meaning to the text, right? And so that if we do that, you could have a database, right? You can have the entire Wikipedia be a database. You could query it. You could say, you know, give me all the presidents that were born between, you know, this date that were elected. Their parties were, you know, conservative parties, and you know, they had a terrorist attack within the last 10 years. You know, you could query something like that. It would have to visit, I don't know how many pages in Wikipedia to extract the data, right? Right? But it would be cool, right? That you have all this information connected to one another, and it could be used as a database. So there's a huge effort by Tim Berners-Lee to add semantics, add meaning to this textual data. Yes. And some part of that effort is that in the new version of HTML, we have new elements. We have new elements that try to move this effort forwards. Right. For instance, we have new elements that identify sections, different sections of the page as headers or footers. Right. Or you know, an article, right? That you're writing an article and it says, well, here's an article. It has a title, right? And it has an author, and it has, you know, when it was published and things like that, right? So it'd be great to be able to you know, grab all this information. Also, that for you to be able to you know, display which one is the main part of the document. We display that this is a date, that this is a time, that this is a figure, has a caption, detailed summaries. And new tags for drawing, right? Even drawing on the page. Okay. So I wanted to just spend a couple of minutes demonstrating and building something here. Right. So let's let's play around with some of these tags. Right, so I'm going to go to my experiments, right? And I'm going to create here. Oh, I need to stop this. Is it running? Why don't I see it? Is it because it's so small? Where's my stop button? Where'd it go? Stop. Oh man, I have a very small screen here. Okay, so I'm going to go into my experiments and I'm going to add a directory in here. And I'm going to put in here several experiments. Yes, there will be HTML related experiments. So I'm going to make an HTML directory in here, and I'm going to create here my first experiment. Add new item, and I want an HTML page, and I'll call it 001. That's not a good name. But I'm going to name them using this nomenclature so that they're ordered. So in the order in which we chronologically created these experiments. Yes. So let's create here maybe intro. All right. So in here, let's open it up. There we go. Have it here. Can I zoom in? Let me see if I can zoom in. There we go. All right. I have a title. And I'll put a title here. I'll say that this is intro to HTML. Okay. So we have our body, and so we're going to have here my header. Right. So this is a new element in HTML5, right? That kind of tells the browser that hey, this is header information that might be just it could be just a heading, just H1, right? Intro to HTML, but it could include other things, right? Maybe some blurb about this HTML, and it could be used by the browser to know whether it should hide it or show it in different use cases, right? If you're scrolling, for instance, right, it might be that it shows it at the first, but as you scroll, it just disappears, right? Or maybe that the header should be fixed, right? And then as you're scrolling, the header is always fixed at a particular place, right? So we could add that kind of logic, but it's good to name things, right? The logical meaning of what it is. Then we might have here different. We have a footer at the bottom, okay, where you might have a copyright maybe. 2015. So let's look at what this. Let's run this. Okay, there it is. So intro to HTML, copyright 2015. Let me make sure that if I change this, I don't have to restart. There it is. Okay, yeah. So I make changes to the HTML. I can refresh the page directly. Can you all see that? Is that too small? Oh no, it's big, right? Good. Everybody can see it from the back. All right, there it is. So we have a header and a footer. So these are new elements, and again, they're logical, right? They're meant to logically break up the content. They work very much like the divs used to work in the previous version of HTML, right? Well, typically the way we would do this before HTML5, we would use divs to do this, right? We have a div and perhaps use an ID identifier. We'd say this ID is this particular div is the header, this other div is the footer, and this other div is the main content. Yes, but HTML5 does the next step and says, well, instead of having this generic div, right, let's have a dedicated element for these different sections that always appear. Okay, let's see. Then we typically might break up the document in various sections, right? So we might have here this might be your main, right? So this might be your main section, right? So this might be H2 main content, right? And perhaps these might be different sections, right? Perhaps a section where you might have different reviews about this particular article, right? The comments down at the bottom, right? So this might have here maybe another here which says, oops, sorry, H2, and this might be I don't know, comments about the main content, right? And now the header can appear several times, right? It could be the header, the main header of the entire document, or you might say this is the header of the main section, right? You could use header many times, right? As long as it's being used for the correct, and it's optional. You don't have to be so specific about everything, right? But again, as much meaning you want to add to the document, right? For instance, in this section, you might also declare this to be a header, right? And the header might not only contain H2, might contain maybe buttons, maybe some navigational parts of that particular section, right? I'm not going to get a header for this. Here we have a comments at the bottom, and in the comments you might have different elements, right? Different sections, subsections about the various comments. Yes, each user might have had several comments, and you might have them here as various articles. That'd be a good use of the article tag, right? Where you might have an author, you might have written by a particular person, right? So here's written by Alice Wonderland. Maybe another article. Which these are the comments, the various comments about the main content article, and then this might be written by Bruce Willis, and you might another comment article written by Dan Aykroyd. Is that how you spell Aykroyd? I don't know. Anyway, so if we refresh down, we have down below any comments that are written by Alice, Bruce, and Dan. And maybe another one. I skipped over C. Harley. So yeah. There we go. What else? Let's see. We have articles. We have the main content. In the main content, we might have maybe we could have subsections of the main content, right? Or maybe paragraph of the content. So let's see. Let's use a P to put a paragraph. Let's see. Let's go look for some content here. 6. Let me do F11. Let's go get some content. We can get some content at Lorem Ipsum. Lorem Ipsum is some fill-in text that we can use that doesn't mean anything, but we can just instead of having to write it, to find text that we might want to fill in to see what it would look like, right? Here we have text that we can copy and paste into our content, but that is not meant to mean anything, right? So let's copy this, and this is used very much so by people in the printing industry. Yes.
Do the new tags like articles? Do they act like this?
Yeah, they act just like this. The block elements. Yes. Block elements are elements that make your page grow vertically, right? They add a new line, right? They break up the page vertically, as opposed to inline elements. Inline elements are elements that do not grow vertically; they grow horizontally, right? They flow with the content, right? For instance, if you want to underline something, or you want to make something bold, or you want to make something, those are content. Those are elements that flow with the content, as opposed to block elements that add new lines and grow your page vertically. So Lorem Ipsum, this is text that it's used today by the printing industry, right? When they're looking to lay out a magazine or lay out a newspaper, right? And they don't have the actual articles yet, right? The editors are still working on the articles, but they want to see what it would look like, right? They want to lay it out, and they just need text, right? They don't want to use real text, but because it might be copyrighted, it could have some liabilities. So here's some text that is pretty old, right? And being from the 1500s, taken from Cicero in the 45 BC. Here's another one that we can use, and we can just copy it, and it's in the public domain. We can just paste it in there, right? And then we can go to our website and refresh to see what it would look like. There it is, our main content, lorem ipsum, and we can have several paragraphs of this, right? See what it would look like. So here's the main content, right? You have the comments down below, right? And the comments down below, we could use these paragraphs also for the comments, right? So down below, we might have comments for all these. So let's say we have another paragraph here and a paragraph there, paragraph there, paragraph. Right. So these are comments by Alice in Wonderland, Bruce Willis, and Charlie Garcia. So very quickly we can start seeing what this page would look like, right? And how it would lay out. And we have been using the new elements that were introduced by in HTML5, right? That are generally referred to as the semantic elements. Okay. All right. All right. One interesting one is details in the summary. Right. Let me show you that. The details might be that, for instance, you might want to hide the articles or the content until you click on it, and then it shows. Right? So, for instance, you might have content here. Well, you might have more content here. You may have details. And let's copy the content in there. Let me move it over here. And just refresh. Notice that now that content is not shown. You see that? This lorem ipsum, the last one, is not shown. It only shows when you click, right? Now, this is something that you used to need a plugin for, right? You needed to include a JavaScript plugin that would allow you to associate a link or a button, right? So that if you clicked on it, it would then show something else, right? Again, HTML5, recognizing the fact that we're building applications, right? Things that that want to be able to interact with end users, now natively supports this feature. Okay. If you want to give a title now, but the default title of this section is details. That's the default, which could be pretty boring. Instead, you can provide a summary element. Oops, summary that says summary or whatever, right? Click here to read details. Okay. Now, if you reload it, notice that the title now changes, right? Now, this is the default look and feel. This is the default styling. We're not going to style the page today. We're not going to style it. We'll do that next week when we talk about CSS, responsive design, and Bootstrap. Okay. Today, we're just going to use all the default styling. Notice that the styling is that it uses Time Romans fonts. Okay. That it uses bold and uses black. Right. Notice that it uses a default padding. Right over here. You notice that it uses a particular spacing between these elements. Right? All of that can be modified with CSS, and we'll do that next week. All right. All right. So there it is. The details. All right. Any questions so far? All right. We'll look at SVG and Canvas a little later. All right. But now with these two tags, you can now draw 2D or 3D images and animate them and do all sorts of things in natively without any use of without the need of any plugin right on HTML5. All right. So we have here some form elements that most of these, all of these already obviously were already supported with by HTML. They have been supported by quite a while, but they now provide new attributes and new types of these input fields, again, to make them bring them up to speed for implementing applications, web applications. Okay, so let's I'd like to spend some time at visiting these. So for instance, if you want to do a comment over here, right? Typically you would have some ability, way to create a comment at the bottom, right? Perhaps a text area, right? Or maybe a link that would link you to a page where you can create a comment. Yes. So let's add here at the comments. Let's put a link that takes us to a commenting page. Yes. Right. So let's put a link, and all that will allow us to talk about links. Right. Notice that I've been using white spaces. Right. Notice that we have spaces, right, for indentation. Please, your HTML should also use indentation. Yes, right. Next week when it's due, the TAs are going to be reading your HTML, going to be looking at the source code, and they're going to be grading you over this, right? So make sure that you properly open and close your elements. You properly use indentation. That you use white spaces, not tabs. That it's easy to read, it's pleasant to read. Okay? As a developer, you have two audiences, right? You have the end user audience, right? That they're looking at this. This is what the end user sees, yes? But you have another audience that is equally important, right? Is you, a couple months from now, that's your audience, or other developers, yes? That are going to be reading your code, right? And they're going to be asked to modify your code, to make changes, to fix it, debug it, alter it in some fashion. Yes? So make sure that it's pleasant to read for both audiences. Make sense? Make sense? All right. We are going to be grading you on both instances, right? As an end user audience and as a developer audience. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay, so let's create a link. So links allow you to. Oh, actually, before I link to this, let me use link for something else before I get too far into here. Let's create here before the main. I'm going to create another semantic element here called the nav. Right, the nav is also a new element that. Again, recognizes that you have navigation elements, right? You have sections that are dedicated for navigation purposes, right? So we whenever you have a set of links, right, that together create some kind of menu or some navigational structure, then use nav to surround it, to wrap that. Usually sometimes you have several sections for navigation. Perhaps at the top you have like a main navigation set of links, and perhaps you have a side bar that also allows you to navigate. Yes. Well, this one at the top. Notice I'm putting at the top, right below the header. I'm going to put a navigation there. Okay. In here, what I'm going to do is have a navigation that allows you to jump to various sections in the same document. Okay. All right. So I'm going to create here hyperlinks that navigate to the same document. Right. Because it's going to be several of these links, right? It's also a good practice to put in some kind of wrapping that puts it in a list, right? Or that groups them into one chunk of or collection of things that are alike. These are several navigational links, right? So I'm going to use a UL. UL means unordered list, right? Unordered list allows you to list many things, right? Or list many items, right? So here's my first item, my first line item, right? Or list item, right? I'm going to have a link that is going to connect to or link me to a different section in the document, right? I want to jump to the comments, for instance. I want to jump to the comments. Comments. Okay. What other sections do we have? Well, really, we only have comments, right? We have the main comments, and we have the main content. We have the comments section. What else could we have down here? We have the footer. We can jump to the footer, I guess, right? So let's jump to the footer. So let's have a link that allows us to jump to the footer. Footer. Okay, there we go. Okay. Oh, sorry. We're gonna have another line item. The hyperlink href equal hash. Okay. Right. So if I render this, and I go at the top, there they are. Right. Those are the links. If I hover, notice that at the bottom. Let me close this. Notice that at the bottom, right? It says the link says it's the same page I'm in, 001-intro, right? Hash comments. You see that? Right? And if I hover over the other one, right, it says footer. Right? Notice it says hash footer. That means that it's not going to leave this page. It's going to stay in the same page. It's going to jump to those sections, right? Notice that if I click on them right now, it doesn't do anything, right? Because I have not told it where are the comments, where is the footer, right? I haven't told it where it is. Okay. The way we tell the where they are, right, is to use another. This is called the anchor tag or the anchor elements, right? That allows you to link different sections or different pages. Allows you to navigate either to different sections in the same page or navigate to other pages in the network. Okay, all right. Everybody still with me? If I lost anyone, please stop me. Okay, if I'm going too fast, right? So anyway, yes.
I was just gonna say, so do you not use divs at all anymore in HTML?
No, we use divs certainly, right? But whenever possible, if it has a meaning, right, then we prefer to use the semantic ones that are dedicated for that specific and leave divs for what they were originally designed to, right? It's just a generic division, right? Let's break up the page, right? For layout, right? For generic layout. If it doesn't fit into any one of the of these dedicated semantics, then yeah, sure, divs are just fine, right? And we'll use plenty of divs a little later. Okay. Right. So I'm going to go to my comments down here. Where's my comments? Comments. There they are. I'm going to create another anchor. I'm going to say that the name of this anchor is comments. And it's empty, right? So now that hash comments at the top, right, it's going to jump down to this section, right, of where this anchor lives, right? And the footer is way down there. So I'm going to put it down here, footer, down here. And I'm going to call it footer. All right, so this maps to that hash footer at the top, right? And that comments maps to the hash comments at the top. All right, so let's try that. I'm going to refresh. Now if I click on comments, it jumps down to comments, right? And if I click on footer, it tries to jump down to footer. Footer is way down there, right? Notice that it didn't jump down here, right? Because there's no content after this, right? To be able to put this way up here at the beginning of the top of the page, right? There would need to be lots of white space or actual content, right? But there isn't, so it tries to go as further as it can, but it can't go any further, right? So here's a footer down here. What we might want to do is a means for us to be able to jump back to the top. How's that? Right? If we're scrolling all the way down to the comments, we might want to go back to the top. So, for instance, we're in comments, we might want to have here a little nav, right? That there's only one, so I'm not going to put it in a list. There's only one link, so there's no need to put it in a list. So I'm going to put an anchor here. I'm going to say href. I'm going to say maybe top, right? I'm going to say back to top. And maybe from the footer, also, I'm going to do the same thing. At the footer, I'm going to put back to top. I'm going to do a line break. Okay. And where is top? I'll tell it right away. Where is the top? The top is way up here at the intro to HTML. So I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to say a name equals top. So let's do that. So if I click on top, it brings me all the way to the top, right? Or if I go to the footer and I click back to the top, it brings me all the way to the top. Make sense? Right? Okay. All right, so we have some navigation. Let's go back to the slides. So yes, we have footer, main, aside. Aside, right? These are meant for content that is about the other content. It's content about the other content, right? It's like a oh, by the way, right? I mean, you're talking about the main topic, the main idea, right? And then you say, oh, by the way, you kind of like do an aside, and then you come back to the main topic, you know? So that's what aside are meant to. They're typically used for sidebars or put them in, they're not critical content. It's great if you read it, but if you don't, it's okay too, right? So put the main content in main, and if you have an aside, put something that is a secondary content, put it in an aside. Typically, this will be hidden on a phone, right? Where you will have the main content, and as you're scrolling, perhaps the aside goes all the way to the bottom, right? That if you don't get to it, it's okay. I mean, you read the main content, right? Or it's removed entirely, depending on your screen size or depending on how you want to lay it out. Okay. So oh, I didn't have nav here. Nav, yes. Okay. All right, so let's move on to these form elements that are useful, for instance, for creating a new post, yes, or a new comment, right? So let's do that. Let's go here, and in the comments section, right at the top, we're going to add a new link here that allows us to create a new comment, right? So let's put it here, also nav, maybe nav, or the other one is the other one might be post, create a new post. Now that since we have two links, perhaps it might make sense to put this in a list, right? And put this link here, and put another link down below. Post a new comment. And instead of jumping to the same page, I'm going to jump to a different page. Okay, all right. That page I'm going to call 002 new post, or actually this was introduction to HTML. This is going to be introduction to forms. Right. So I'm going to call it. Let's see. What should we call it? I guess I'll call it new post. Okay, .html. Right, and obviously the topic that we're talking about in that new post is form elements, right? Form elements. So let's create that new. Oh, I need to stop it. Wait, can I make this bigger? There we go. Okay, let me stop it. For new content, you need to stop the server. Unfortunately. New HTML page, there it is, and we called it, what did we call it? 002 new post HTML. Is that what we called it? Yeah. There it is. So here's the new post. Close this, and we're going to give it a meaningful title. So too big. Okay, so I'm gonna call it. It says this is new post, and body. I'm going to say that this is a header, and that this is H1, new post. Okay, and here's going to be my main section, and this one is just going to have a form. This is going to be a form, right? And in that form, right, so elements of a form go inside of an element called form, right? Form is the groups together all the form elements. We're going to give it an ID. This is new post, right? IDs uniquely identify elements in a page. Okay, so presumably this is the only element in the entire page that has this identifier. Okay? And we use it so that we can reference it elsewhere in the document. Okay, one new feature in HTML5 is that before in plain old HTML, all the form elements needed to be inside of the form. Okay, and that can be very restrictive when you want to use when you want to lay out your page like in different sections, right? Where you want to have like some form at the top, some blurb and text and content and images, whatnot, and then some forms down below, right? You want to split up your form into various sections, right? So it can be challenging to create forms that have this layout if you are forced to have one form like that. Okay, but now in HTML5, you can put the elements anywhere. Obviously inside of the form, but outside of the form as well. You can put form elements outside. You just have to be able. You would have to refer to the form and say, hey, even though I'm outside of the form, I still belong to that form, right? You can refer to the form that you belong to. Okay, so when the form gets submitted, right, the data that you typed in those elements get submitted as well with that form. Okay. All right. Let's look at forms. And let's type in. Let's create here a field, a very simple field, an input of type text. That's a default text, right? We're gonna give it a name, and we'll say just this is a test. Test. Okay. And we're just gonna put a button here. Button of type submit, and it says submit. Okay. All right. So let's see if this works. Let's refresh here. Let's go down to the comments. Where's the comments? Comments. And there it is. So post a new comments, right? If we click on it, it goes to the new post, right? It comes here. I just wanted to show you that if whatever you type here, right, and you submit, notice what happens here, right? The page reloads, right? The page reloads. Typically what happens is that this would be posted to the server, right? The server would receive the data and it would do something. For instance, it would insert your new post in the database, right? And then it would maybe bring you back to the original page, yes? So you could see your new comment. Make sense? Right? Right now, it's not doing anything. It's just posting it. We never told it where to send the data, right? So the default is to post it to itself, right? That's the default behavior. And it's I just wanted to point out how the data gets posted, or how does the data propagate, right? Whatever we type, the data gets propagated. Notice what happens. It gets propagated at the end of the URL. You see the URL, right? The original URL ended with .html, yes? But notice that because we posted it, notice what got added to the URL, right? You see that $ question mark at the end? That's called a query, right? We are adding parameters to the query, right, to the URL. The URL now has an additional section called the query, right, which has parameters. Here's a parameter called test. That's the name we gave it, wasn't it? You said name. The field we call the field we call the test. Yes, right. And whatever we typed, when we submitted it, that's what it gets passed. It says, hey, server, this person, right, the user, the end user, submitted this form whose field test has a value, whatever, garbage. Make sense? Right? And then the server would be responsible for processing this submission, the form submission. Everybody okay? Still with me? All right. Okay. What we can do is we can say the action, meaning where should this be posted to? Where should I go when this gets posted? Right? Typically, the action is to be posted to some server side, something that has to execute. Somebody has to read the data, communicate with the database, insert the data into the database, and then come back and say, where do I go? Right? Right now, we don't have that just yet, right? We need ASPX, we would need C#. We're not there yet, right? We haven't done server-side programming yet, right? We're still doing very early client-side programming, right? Meaning this HTML are coming from the server, yes, right? But they're being rendered where? At this client, right? The client is rendering these pages. So we're for instance, what we could do is just go back to our original page, intro.html, not involve the server at all. Okay. So for instance, if I refresh and I submit now, right, I go back to the original page. You see that? And presumably my new post would be at the bottom, but it isn't, right? Because this is a hard-coded static page still, right? But slowly and surely we will add new features, right? Of adding things to the database, reading that content from the database and rendering it. We're not there yet. Okay, so let's go back to comments, a new comment. Actually, this should not say new post, right? This should say new comment, right? Makes no sense. That's it's a misnomer. Let me fix that. Let me fix that. So this really should be. This should really be new comment, right? And the intro, this should go to new comment. Let me go back. Let me refresh. Let's see if it works. Okay, we're still there. Submit. All right, very good. Let's go to new comment. All right, so we sort of understand how forms work. Yes, we have this form. We say where do we want to send the data. Right now, we're sending the data to an HTML page. The HTML page, can't do anything with it just yet, right? We don't know what to do with it yet, right? So for now, I'm just going to stay in the same page. I'm just going to stay in the same page so that I can debug this, right? I'm going to remove the action, so it's just going to stay in the same page, all right? Everybody okay? All right. All right. So here's input. Okay, so here's an input. Typically, what we want to be able to do here is that we want when we are adding a new when we're adding a new comment, we want to be able. We want to wait. Did I change this? New comment. New comment. Comment. Let me fix that over here too. New comment. There we go.
How about ID?
The ID. Oh, there we go. Thank you. New. Yep. Thank you. All right. So we want to be, as descriptive as possible to our end users, right? So, for instance, we might want to say, we want to ask them. If you want to add a comment, you need to tell us who you are, right? So maybe we want to ask them for their email, right? So let's do that. We can say, I want to ask for an email. You can now strongly type the piece of information that you're asking for, right? If the input field is a typed text, it means that it could be any text, right? It's a very generic text that you can ask for. But if you say type equal email, Now I am enlisting the help of the browser to make sure that this indeed is an email, right? That it has an @ sign, right? That has a domain name at the end of the @ sign, right? So I can do some very simple validation, right? The browser can do some simple validation, which before you had to use, again, you had to use plugins for doing all this validation. You had to use some JavaScript validation. Also, when you do validation, it's always a good practice to validate early as possible, and as and as frequent as possible, right? So you validate early, meaning right there on the page, you validate, right? The first encounter with the user, you validate that they don't provide bogus data to the server, right? And then you validate often, right? You validate at the UI, at the user interface. You validate at the server when you receive the data at the server, right? You validate again, and then you validate again at the database, right? When you get to the database, also make sure that you're not inserting or modifying bad data in the database, right? So you validate early and you validate often, right? You validate everywhere. Okay. Right now we're validating at the client side, right? At the front end of the user interface. Okay, so I'm asking for an email. So I'm going to give this the name email. Okay, the name is the name of the field, right? Name is the name of the field. This is the field name that's going to be passed to when I submit, and this is the type, right? So now if I refresh and I type whatever, okay, notice that right now it's not letting me type just anything. It's doing some very simple validation. It says, hey, you're missing an @ sign. Okay, notice that it says, please include an @ sign. Right? Then if we do include an @ sign and we try to submit again, it says, please enter a part following the @ sign, meaning you have to provide a domain at the end. Right? So this will not let me through until I have at least some very, very basic, a pattern here, right? So .com and say submit. Okay, finally it lets me submit. There it is, email. There's the email. Email equal whatever I typed. Yes? Everyone still with me? All right. Another thing that we might want to do is to label our fields, right? We want to have the user understand what is it that we're asking for here. Okay, so we might use a label. I'm going to say label, and this is for the email, and the label is email. Okay. Now the way this works is that this for is saying that you're saying that this is the label for that input field that lives over there. Okay. For this to work, I need to add an ID. Right. This is referring to the unique identifier of this input field. So I need to add that. I'm going to say ID email. Now this is getting crazy, right? I'm using for the type, for the name, and for the ID, I'm using email, and email, right? Just to make sure that, or just to show you that they don't have to match, right? They don't have to match. I'm going to call this email ID. Okay, I'm going to call this email ID, and I'm going to call this email field. Okay, they don't have to match. This has to be email. That type has to be email, right? That's how the browser knows to validate that this is an email. Yes, it's like a database that has a type, right? This name, that's the name that is going to be submitted in the URL. Yes. And this ID is for internal purposes in the document so that it can be referenced elsewhere. So that the label is referencing this input field by ID. That makes sense? Right? All right. Let's refresh that. There's our label. Notice that if I click on the label, it understands that you meant to click on the field. Right? Now they're an integral part. The label and the field are an integral part of each other. If I click on one, it's as if the label gets focus, you get focus on the field. That makes sense, right? Oftentimes we break it up into like a grid, right, where you have the field names on the left-hand side and the field itself on the right-hand side, right? So label, field, label, field, label, field, label, field. Yes, right. That's a very common way of laying out things. Another common way to lay it out is to to break it up. Right, you break it into a new line. Yes, right. So something like this, for instance, right? You have the email at the top of the label, right, and then a new line to show the field below it. Okay, but using break for that purpose is considered to be bad practice, right? Breaks are meant to break things that normally would be written in a single line, right? But you want to break it up, right? You write it as a single line, but you want to break it up. Like, for instance, an address. Yes, street, break, street 2, break, right? Town, break, zip code, and state. Yes, right. That's a proper use of the break tag. For the purposes of breaking this up, right? A better way of breaking it up is to use a div, right? To use divs and add some vertical breaking of the page, right? Divs say this is a division. I want a division, right? This is a new kind of section. It's a generic division, vertical division, right? So now if I reload, notice that now I have the email label, yes, then the field, and then below it the submission button. That makes sense, right? All right. Okay. Also, what this is going to allow us to do later on when we go to CSS next week, right? This will allow us to add CSS that is responsive, right? Meaning, if I have enough space, maybe I want to show it side by side, right? You know, have the email to the left and this right here, right? Right? Maybe I want it to flow like this: the label and then the field right next to it. But if I'm looking at it on a phone, right, then I want it to wrap. Make sense? So by using the divs instead of the break, right, allows us to decide, right, these kinds of layouts, you know, to be responsive. Make sense? Right? Instead, if we use break, it's always going to break, right? It's always going to do a new line, right? But if we use div, we can decide how we want to lay it out. Okay? All right. So right now we're not using CSS, so that's the default layout, right? We don't know CSS just yet, so we're going to stay with the default layout. Okay. Also useful now in HTML5. Typically, we want to add additional information here. For instance, we could do like a tooltip, or maybe something that's very common today is to add some grayed out content here that kind of gives me a hint of what it is that you want me to type in here. Okay, so to do that, again, you would before you needed to do plugins. Today, no, you could use what is called a placeholder. Placeholder, and you can say someone, right? Someone at somewhere.com. Right, so you can give maybe an idea or an example of what it is that we want them to type, right? So if we go there and refresh, notice that now we have this grayed out content that if I click on it, you know, I can start typing, it goes away, right? But it's kind of giving me a hint on what it is that I want, what it wants me to type. Make sense? Right? Again, before we used to need plugins for all this, and now it's natively supported, right? Other things that are typically we wanted to do is provide some like hover help or some tooltip that would give a hint on what is that what we want information from there. So we can have here, maybe we have a title, we can use title to say, you know, please enter your email. Right, so that now if we hover over it, right, we have some kind of tooltip, right, that has a very, very quick explanation of what we're asking for. Everyone okay? All right. All right, so that's email. Let's create a couple more. Typically, we want to group this together, right? That the label and the input field go together somehow. Notice that right now they're siblings, right? But their parent is the form, right? But typically what we want to do is says, no, these guys go together, right? Wherever one goes, the other also goes, right? So typically we also group the whole thing into an outer div, you know, just to make sure that these guys, right, they belong to the same thing, right? You have this whole thing is it's one group, one logical group, right? Then we can have several others. So we have div, maybe we have a text area. Let's put a couple other things here. Maybe the dates when they're we say so div here, and we have maybe a label for date posted, and so we have here date posted. And we have here div, we have input, we can have type date. Okay, we have date, and we're gonna name this. Let's not name it. Let's not name it, see what happens. So there's the date posted. Notice now that it automatically provides a hint on what it is that I'm asking for, right? Month, day, and year in that format. Also notice that if I hover over it, it gives me a some widget that allows me to select the dates, right? Again, we used to need jQuery plugins or some Dojo plugins, right, to be able to do this right now, and now it's natively supported. This is also supported on most phones, where if you visit this with your phone and you click on something that is declared as a type date, right? It'll give you a date picker, right, on your phone, right?
Can that be styled separately in CSS?
No. No. Yeah, it's a lot of these new elements are very, very new, and they're not equally supported across browsers, right? It's evolving. It's an evolving standard, okay, and hopefully. By next version, it'll be consistently supported through all of them.
So just to make out a different color, would you just have to make your own from scratch, essentially?
Yeah, you would have to use some kind of plugin. Yeah. This is using whatever your browser supports for a date picker. Okay. You can also provide. Notice that if I submit. Notice that the email field is blank. See that it's blank because I never typed anything in the email field. You see that, right? But notice that my date posted didn't even make it to the query string. See, there's nothing there. Why? Because I never named it. I never gave it a name, right? So I'm going to call this date posted. Right? If I refresh and I try to submit, right, it'll. At least now date posted is blank because I never selected a date, right? I can give it an initial value. I can give it by saying value, right? And the value might be 2015 dash 12 dash 23. So there it is, right? It gives me a default date. If I submit it, notice that the email field is empty, but the date posted is not empty. Right, so it's posting it. Notice that it might be that we should not allow you to submit unless you give us an email, right? To do that, we can provide a require. We can say that this is required, right? That the email is required. So if I submit and I submit now, it's going to say, no, I'm not going to let you submit unless you give me the email. Okay. Also notice that. typically notice that I would have to start typing. I can't start typing when I load the page. Yes, ideally I would want it to you know, autofocus and come here, right, so that it starts, so I can start typing right away, right? So I could also use the autofocus so that when I refresh, when I load the page, when I first come here, notice that the email gets autofocus immediately. Okay. Also, something that might be very annoying is that your browser might be remembering, right? Might be remembering emails from you having filled in your email before, right? So it tries to autocomplete, and sometimes that gets in the way. It's just, you know, it's very annoying that it's or sometimes you want to force them to type it, right? You don't want the browser to remember anything, right? Especially if they're logging in or if they're authenticating themselves. You want to force the user to actually type the email, right? Instead of the browser suggesting something, yes? To do that, you can turn off the autocomplete. You can say autocomplete equal on or off, right? It says, no, I don't want the browser to suggest anything. I'm forcing you to type it, okay? All right, makes sense? I'm going to turn off required because I don't want to have to type the email. I'm going to turn it off. What else? So we have date. We have time. We have time. So this is time posted. So we have time, and we can give it a default value. So now notice that we get a time picker, right? PM, AM, and whatnot. Or we can combine those into a single one. So maybe we could say, you know, date time posted. This is date time posted. So this is. Oh, this is a label. Oh, I don't have an ID for this, right? All these should have IDs. Date, time posted. And the name is date, time posted also. Date, time posted. Notice that date, time posted is the same as time. Chrome doesn't natively support the date, time. Oh, I'm sorry, date, time. Date, time, there it is. So yeah, date time is actually not supported by Chrome, right? The date time type, but Chrome does support date time local, right? Which is a local version of the date time, right? So there it is. So now we can pick out the date and we can pick out the time. Okay. What else we have here? We have numbers. We can ask for numbers, right? So maybe. Yeah, let's see. We can say maybe like a star rating. Maybe you can say a rating. So maybe this is rating, and this is we want a number. Right. So this is name is rating, and the value. We take out the value. It's of type number, right? Type number. So now notice that rating, when I hover over it, it gives me this picker that allows me to select a number. Yes?
Is there a difference between daytime and daytime local, or is it just like
Yeah, Chrome decided to just support daytime local. It uses the browsers, wherever the browser is running, right? And allows you to pick it in your particular format, right? So if in Europe, it'll allow you to pick your dates in your particular format or your particular time format, right? So for instance, it'll be military 0 through 24 instead of 0 through 12 and PM, right? So that one is a broader implementation, right? Of the date picker, right? And you can also give it when it's a number, you can give it a minimum and a maximum. You can say minimum 0 and the maximum 5. Right, so you can't give our ratings greater than 5. So if we give it a 9, right, submit, it says value must be less than or equal to 5. Okay, so it validates, right? So if I have 3, it allows me to submit it, right? And then it's part of that, all right? Make sense? Instead of using that, we can provide a rating using a slider, a rating slider, where the type, we can say that it's a range, right? Type range, and the minimum is 0 maximum, right? Right, and then I can submit that. And now we have a slider, right? It'll render natively in whatever operating system. So for instance, in Macs, it'll use the Macs look and feel for the slider, right? And it even works with my finger, right? So it works also with all the gestures. Okay. Obviously, you can. So this is rating slider, and this is type range. What else do we have? We have progress. So for instance, maybe you're filling out a form, and maybe you're filling out a profile. Yes, and in that profile, you have to provide your contact information, the people you know, and where you've worked, where you went to school and whatnot, right? And you're filling out a profile, and maybe you have a progress bar, right? And so, for instance, you have here you have a progress bar, and so this is progress. So maybe this is your profile progress. So this might be an input, an end, and this could be progress. And you have what is it? Max. Max is equal to 100, and the value is equal to maybe you're 30% done with the progress, right? So there's a progress bar, right? Oh, it looked prettier on my Mac. Why is it rendering so ugly? Oh, maybe because I'm zoomed in. All right, there it is, right? And obviously, all of these things can be updated programmatically through JavaScript, right? Which we'll look at in a couple of weeks. All right. All right. So there we go. So we have lots of form elements, brand new form elements. Let me go back to my HTML. Let's look at finally radios and checkboxes, and the text area, right? Obviously, where are you going to type your actual comment? Let's put a text area. So we have here the actual comment. So here's your comment, and this is going to be a text area. So it's going to be text area, and it's going to have a name is the actual comment. The ID is also comment. And if we not that. Sorry, that one, refresh. There's our text area. Notice that the text area can be resized, right? So you can type more. So this is, you can actually type actual content. Let's see, that's a text area. What else? Radio buttons. Let's look at radio buttons right now. Let's have maybe you have whether you want to subscribe, right? And you might have a couple of radio buttons that say yes or no, right? So where is it? Subscribe, and you might have here radio buttons that says, oh no, there's no label here. This is the label for here, but each radio button will have its own label, right? So labels for radio buttons, the way they work is that you use the label, and then inside of the label, you use a radio button, right? So you have here the radio button. So it says input type radio, right? And here you have yes, I want to subscribe, or no, I don't want to subscribe, right? So we have here yes and no, right? Let's refresh. Here you have subscribe, yes, no. Notice that if I click one, I can actually click both. Right, that makes no sense, right? They have to be mutually exclusive for them to be mutually exclusive, they have to have the same name, right? So if you have name, this is called subscribe. Subscribe. If they have the same name, then they know that they belong to the same group of radios, right? So if we do this, and I click yes and no, notice that now they're mutually exclusive because they know they form part of the same thing. Also, if you now they have a name, when you submit, and you submit, notice that it's part of the URL down here. Maybe not. Did I give it a name? Posted, time posted, posted, rating, slider, subscribe. There it is. It says subscribe. It says on, meaning there was a radio button that was selected, but there is no value that you selected. There is one selected, right? And that's all I can tell you. Or you can be a little more specific and says, well, if this one is selected, I want the value of subscribe to be yes. Or if you click on no, I want the value to be no. Right? So if we refresh and we click on no, and we say submit, then notice here that the field for subscribe says no. See that? Or if I say click on yes, right, and I say submit, it'll be yes. Okay. All right. What else? How about you want to submit this? Also notice that I can click on the label. See that? I can click on the label. I don't have to click on the actual radio button because it knows that this is the label for that radio, right? So wherever you get the focus on the label, it knows that it's that particular radio. How about some checkboxes that allow you to select maybe several genre, right? Or maybe under several categories, right? So this is maybe a category, and these are type checkboxes. Checkbox, right? This is also a checkbox. The name is maybe category, and the value, maybe this is, I don't know, this should go under maybe horror, comedy, and the labels might be horror and comedy, right? And there's the checkboxes, and when I refresh, there they are, category, horror, comedy. If I select one of them, right, and I submit, right, notice that the data that gets submitted is category equal horror. You see that? But if I select both of them, right, because these are not mutually exclusive, and I submit, what gets submitted is the category. It says it gets submitted twice. Notice it says category equal horror, category equal comedy, right? Both of them get submitted because you have two values that were submitted. Make sense? Now it's your responsibility on the server to parse that out, right, and to do whatever you need to do with that, right? What else? Let's see. I think I did that. Let me go back to my cheat sheet over here. We looked at checkboxes, text areas, date. We didn't look at month, but just like there's a month, just like there's a date, time, date, local. There's also a month. You can select a month, a week, which is pretty cool. You can take a look at that on your own. Placeholder, we looked at that. Required, min, max, we looked at that. Oh yes, one more. It's very important. If you want to, instead of a radio button, you want to have like a drop down, right? Where you maybe want to select from a drop down. Let's see, what can we put there? Maybe a genre. And the genre, instead of having these labels over here, this we'll use a select, right? And we'll give a name to this and say this is genre. The select might have several options where it says you can select rock, classical, new age, right? Where, oops, not that one. So we have here the genre, right? Now notice that you have a drop down where you can select rock, classical, new age, right? And when you submit it, it goes in the input field as genre. There it is, classical, right? But so that has been always supported in HTML. There's a new version of this, which is a little better, which is called a data list. So genre data list version, where instead of being a select, right, what you do is that you have an input, right, and what you do is that instead of a select, you have what's called a data list, right, genre data list, okay. Here, what you do is that you have an input field that says that the name is, I'm sorry, not name. Is it ID? Maybe it's ID. That says this is a genre data list, and that the list is genre data list. Okay. So now the genre data list, right? Where is it? Where'd it go? Right? You still have the drop down, just like the select, right? But see, it's like a type ahead, right? If you type C, right, immediately jumps to that option, and then you can just go down and select it, classical, right? So it allows you to type in something completely different that has nothing to do with one of the options, right? So there's like a combo box, right? That you have some options, or you can just type whatever you want, right? All right. I hope this was this was just an intro of HTML. It just gives us a baseline. We will come back to this throughout the semester and give you more of this. But this gives you just a baseline for us to get started on our assignments. Okay. I'm going to be in my office today between 6 and 7:30.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
Let me stop this.
Would it be not advised to use? I've been using IntelliJ IDEA.
Oh, it's
Oh
fine.
yeah. Like, so there's not anything special.
No,
Yeah.
no.
And also, I just want to make sure that I have all the right